Joining us now on NDTV is India's former Foreign Secretary, Mr. Shyam Saran, who's been following these developments closely. Mr. Saran, anything that took you by surprise at all in Mr. Putin's speech today?
I would say that, the expectation, as you yourself mentioned, that there could be a much more escalatory tone in the speech. In fact, the speech was, to my mind, rather subdued. He tried to justify the war, not so much in terms of the clash with Ukraine, but rather putting it in the frame of Russia against the West. That, I think, is the more important thing. And secondly, I was also struck by the fact that usually on this occasion, Russia does invite a number of foreign dignitaries to participate. I had expected that at least maybe the Belarusian leader and also maybe even the Chinese leader may be invited. But that was not the case. It was almost exclusively a Russian program to really sort of focus attention on this being really Russia's moment, Russia's hour, and trying to portray what is happening today in Ukraine as almost a continuation of the Great Patriotic War, of the fight against Nazism, as if this was really a modern day incarnation of that particular great
He did actually
struggle.
Make a reference to the
So
Ukrainians.
these were some of the elements which perhaps were.
Why do you think it was subdued, Ambassador Saran? I mean, is it that that on the ground perhaps this is played out much longer than Mr. Putin would have wanted, and there have been setbacks for the Russian military? Is that why he was a little subdued, you think?
Certainly may have been one of the major reasons, because as you know, just a couple of days back, a second Russian ship was actually destroyed by a missile fired from Ukraine. This can be very embarrassing, and the fact that, just before this anniversary, you have the wife of the US president visiting Ukraine. You have the Canadian Prime Minister visiting Ukraine. So all this, adds up to very provocative behavior from the Russian point of view. And they are not really able to do very much about it. So there must be, I would imagine, a sense of, some disquiet as to the way in which things are working out.
Diplomatically,
not working out, actually.
Diplomatically, though, do you see a tiny window that may have opened up with a resolution being passed at the UN just a couple of days ago that had more toned down language when it came to the events in Ukraine, calling it a dispute, not talking about Russian aggression per se? Do you think that opens up a window for backchannel diplomacy?
My impression is that that particular resolution was very much directed towards humanitarian, the possibility of being able to persuade Russia and also the Ukrainians to allow the evacuation of people who have been caught in the crossfire, as it were. I'm not very certain, given the way things are moving, that there could actually be a kind of a compromise solution. Because what would that compromise solution look like? I mean, the most that you can expect is perhaps a ceasefire, and that ceasefire from the Russian point of view would be without even some limited aims having been achieved. That limited aim, as you know, in the speech, he very much focused attention on Donbass. It was quite revealing that he did not make a mention of Mariupol, where much of the fighting is actually taking place at this point of time. But he focused attention mainly on Donbass, and it appeared as if this whole, sort of military operation is essentially about Donbass, which is really sort of toning down the original objectives of this military operation.
Absolutely.
Now, if a ceasefire has to be negotiated, I would imagine that the Russians would at least want that limited objective of Donbass at least being secured. Otherwise, I cannot see how Putin his own domestic political position, how could that be secured if actually this ends without very much to show for it?
Mr. Saran, since we have you here, I just wanted to ask a quick last question on the developments in India's neighbourhood in Sri Lanka. Today you have Prime Minister Rajapaksa resigning just a little while earlier. There's so much turmoil in Sri Lanka that's extending to Nepal as well. We've seen the political instability in Pakistan now extending to economic instability as well. How do you look at these developments, particularly in Sri Lanka, and the fallout that could have in the region?
Well, there is no doubt that the latest developments in our neighborhood are a matter of great concern, I would imagine. In the case of Sri Lanka, I think there is also a certain opportunity for India. Because I think India has been quite helpful in trying to assist the country in overcoming the economic crisis, whether it is in terms of its food crisis or fuel crisis, or even the foreign exchange crisis. I think India has the opportunity to really project itself as a very supportive neighbor. So even though these clashes are taking place, there is political turmoil. I think if India plays its cards well and supports the resumption of stability, also helps them overcome the crisis, because after all, it shouldn't be very difficult for India to offer the kind of economic and financial support that would be required. These are smaller countries, their demands are not very large. So I also tend to look upon the crisis as also an opportunity for India to really refurbish its good neighborhood policy or neighborhood first policy.
All right, Mr. Shyam Saran, thank you very much for your perspective there on what's happening in Ukraine, Russia, and of course in India's neighborhood as well. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.